Good afternoon. Welcome back to the stream. I'm going to do a little bit more of Incarnate map making today. Quite enjoyed using it yesterday. It's a very interesting tool. Seen a few different ones of these, like Wonder Draft, one of the other ones I remember. But I decided to go for Incarnate since what I've been seeing recently, and because it has those different modes for your different map types you want to make. But I got a pop-up when opening it today that they've now got another map mode for sci-fi battle maps, which I'm sure you could still already make in the fantasy slot, but if they've got a whole new set of assets for sci-fi specifically, then that is fantastic. What I want to do today actually though is make a world map. I'm gonna go for a regular world instead of parchment, because as beautiful as a parchment map looks, I think if I go for that I'll spend too much time thinking about aesthetics and not enough time thinking about what's actually on the map itself. So fantasy world, and I'll keep the settings on their defaults. Now, the map I made yesterday was a kind of generic, let's just try some stuff out, see what Incarnate is like map. There's no real world building to it. You know, I chose what to do based on some ideas I have about ways to make world building easier for yourself. So pick a central safe location, spiral outwards, make it more rough and dangerous as you go. But what I want to do today is actually think about some proper world building. Now, before I get into that, I do want to get distracted real quick, because I saw in the pop-up as well that there are some beta tools available at the moment, which we can see here specifically for the line and shape tool. Not entirely sure what they've actually changed though. I mean, this looks different from what I saw yesterday. We've got portals? We can drag anywhere on a wall or room path to add a new portal. I think that's probably not for this map mode. Cut path, click on any node to select it. Click and drag a node to move it. Click anywhere on a wall path to add a new node. Not sure what's going on there. This is still the same as what we had before. I kind of feel like there should be more options in here, because yesterday I could pick different modes. There's the dotted line, but there's also solid line or dashed line, dotted line, and solid line. Oh, there we go, style. Right, then I assume there will be more options put in here later. I guess what I was talking about yesterday, about using this to make roads and rivers, I assume the plan here is that you can pick your line style on one end, and then they're going to put different prefabs kind of in here to allow you to add those things specifically. If that is the case, if that's what they end up doing, then that is excellent and exactly what I was looking for. But to come back from the brief distraction to the actual world, I've got a few different world building projects at different stages of completion and work put into them. I've decided to pick one, which I've got a few notes open here on another monitor, but I want to try and kind of map out. Now, I'm not usually a maps kind of person. I might have a rough idea of what a place looks like on a large scale, and a few locations that might go into a particular area or whatever, but I'm not generally actually drawing out maps and going, yes, definitively, this is here, this is there, and that's how far apart they are. Just because most of my world building projects I'm not actually writing anything in. I design them and think about them, and I get inspiration, and it's just kind of fun to do, but I don't work with them any further than that. There's only a couple worlds that I'm building with the intent of actually doing anything more with them. And this world, I guess I just kind of picked because it's a kitchen sink kind of setting, which I do enjoy greatly. I love kitchen sink settings like D&D or the World of Anbana and stuff like that. And I think it's a fitting one to work on stream, specifically because there's kind of... Oops, sorry, knocked my mic. Because there's kind of anything and everything in it, which opens up the opportunity to include a lot of suggestions in the world. So, just looking at my notes here, I have kind of a rough checklist of here's a few features that are supposed to go in the world somewhere, and then a rough idea of what I want the landmasses to look like. So I'm generally thinking there's going to be like 2 big continents kind of curved into each other, a third big one at the bottom of the map, and then smaller islands like off to the sides, a bit in between. Like this, but actually drawn much better. That's the general gist of the shape of thing. And then for what goes onto that, kitchen sink setting, but still mostly fantasy focused. I am a great fan of Magitech, and the kind of the initial building blocks that I had for this world are two separate ideas. One of which is a whole little document I've got somewhere detailing a rough outline for a magic system, and then the other one of which is that I'm just a big fan of cool fantasy trains. Yeah, there's an animation for the Adventure Zone, the D&D podcast that had a really pretty train in it. Stuff like the train tracks going through the water in House Moving Castle. All that kind of stuff. The Astral Express from Star Rail. I really love those. So what I thought I would do is make a very large world with all sorts of crazy places in it that really don't necessarily fit together or that function under their own sort of separate rules, which is another thing I really like. I made that video about fantasy geography, and I love that kind of stuff. You know, if you look at the map from Born London and Sunless Sea, the different locations that are just so unique and function under really different rules. I want that kind of thing spread across the whole world, and then all of it connected by these kind of partially underground, partially in another dimension train lines that bring the whole setting together, which will also make it a whole lot easier to write in, because it means your characters can get from place to place a lot more easily. As much as all of this was influenced by a bunch of different things and a bunch of different interests I have, the very first thought that brought me onto this was me going, what if I came up with a story that was just a very classic high fantasy adventure? Because I've been looking at lots and lots of different stories, and I look at stories for my videos and research them, and watch lots of other YouTubers who make similar content about tropes and story structures and stuff like that. And I realized all of these different story ideas I've come up with so far are all trying to be a little bit different and make something a little bit unique and stuff like that, which is good, but tropes are there for a reason. Something gets popular because it's actually good. So I figured, why not really lean into it and make a very classic high fantasy? Here are the characters, and they get summoned in and given a quest to go and do. And then from there I went, okay, what kind of magic system do I put in a world with a quest? And from the magic system I went, okay, now what kind of world do I make around that? It ended up being a really messy, lots of different things brought together kind of world, which I'm now going to try and draw out. So, to start with, one of my notes specifically says there's going to be an island on the north of the map. Scale-wise, probably think like UK or Japan kind of size, but that might change later on. I'm always tempted to make my worlds absolutely colossal, like 10 times the size of Earth. I just enjoy that. But specifically, I don't want a frozen north to the world, so I do want to just kind of stick an island somewhere up there that will have, that will be all ice and snow. Now, let me make this like half size, and then just quickly draw out again. So, two landmasses spun together, one off to the side underneath, and then a few islands around the place. So with that as a baseline, probably maybe off to the corner, like this kind of shape, and that will be the frozen north. And then one continent in the middle will be all temperate kind of weather. So this will all be greenery. What's the term? Coniferous? I just deciduous are like pine trees and stuff, and coniferous are other trees. So this will all be very, very hospitable, and lots and lots of people, lots of large kingdoms. Then this continent next to it can be the bunch of weird stuff, magical biomes and stuff like that continent. And then the one at the bottom, trying to learn all the keyboard shortcuts of this program. The one at the bottom, I'm not quite sure yet what will go on there. Probably cut this apart. I do love a good inland sea and stuff like that. Yeah, something like this. Excuse me. And that bit can be a bit open. So, get my head wrapped around this. If I'm thinking this is not it's probably too big to be not continent size compared to the rest of the land. If I want a UK size island, like if this is a world map, then trying to mentally overlay like Africa onto this would be like, yeah. So, you know, if like China's here, Russia, no, I'm getting the scale entirely wrong. Let me bring up a world map. World map. Like this. Open image and map. No. Let's bring that. I have to say, my one big complaint for Opera GX is it's so fiddly to move tabs between windows. It's much smoother on Google Chrome to do that. So, if I overlay this mentally, this map really could do with being a little wider. Can I change that in the settings somewhere, or do I need to make a new map to change the aspect ratio? I probably need to make a new one. Resizing maps is always a bit fiddly. Edit map details, no, that's just for name and stuff like that. Save as clone. Resize map, new map from region. Ah. Interesting. Okay, what if I just select the entire thing? Grid, snap to group. Select the world. And then width. Something like 50? Is that overkill? A new map will be created based on a selected region. Here's what happens when you click save and proceed. Your current map will be saved automatically and the current editing session will be finished. A brand new map will be created based on the area you selected. If a selected area stretches beyond the boundaries of the current map, empty spaces will be filled with the default water and land textures. For the new map, remove all objects outside of the selected region. Yeah. Just call it new map. And if you're happy with the result, please save your map now. Well, that is excellent functionality. good going on the part of Incarnate. We'll just save it as new map for now. I'll think of a name later when I actually decide to name the world. Okay, so comparing these, this island is probably a little bigger than what I was picturing with kind of a UK or Japan size landmass. But I think that's probably fine. Now here's a question. Can I select and move part of the no, you can only move objects on the map. Okay, so set this back down to 50. And then roughly recreate this over here. Yeah, remove that. Remove those random bits. Okay, and then I want to move this whole thing over and make it a bit bigger. Cut the middle out of here, cut the end off. Good. I realized that early and can get this out of the way before I'd started actually putting more detail into anything. Okay, like this. And we want to make this a little less smoothly shaped. Not too far to the south there, I think. It's good to leave some regions of empty water. I'm not going to put too much thought into the, what's it called? There's a name for how you translate a flat map onto a globe. Because if you think about it, all of this is at the same spot on the top of the globe. This is the bottom of the globe. And this are right next to each other. Actually, having said that, immediately, I've made this side of the continent a little bit too flat because I'm bunching it up across against the edge of the map, and really, they shouldn't be that flat. This might be a bit better. There we go. Okay. I'm still mostly happy with the shape of this. But maybe it doesn't quite go as far up towards that landmass. That can stretch a little further in there with like a really thin bit. Okay, and then I'll want to cut a few places off. Make some islands around the place. Size 40. Make that smaller. Yeah, just kind of dig into places a little here and there. Like that. Happy with that. Mostly happy with this. Make this all very small. Yeah, go across here. I'll have to tidy the borders up a bit later, I think. Yeah, like that. This indent here, I think, is good. Then, where else? This is meant to be like the default continent, so it can kind of just be a big landmass. And then this is going to get broken up geographically by the nonsense I'm going to put on it, so that's mostly fine. Then this can stay empty C, this can stay empty C, so there's really not any room left to put any smaller islands on. Or to put any, really noticeable islands on. Any other land masses like that are probably going to be more this kind of scale. Maybe smaller even. Yeah. Something like that off the coast here. Little land there. A little archipelago over here. Don't like that dot there. And we'll change the shape of this afterwards, you know, when we zoom in a little later on. Yeah, a few bits like that there. This... yeah, I think this all I'm mostly happy with. Okay. Reset these. Just for later, I don't forget it. Then to the brush. That's all at default settings, good. So, foreground. Grass mix, grass green. How bright is this? Like, really bright? Really bright. It looks almost radioactive rather than a healthy sort of green. Like emerald green. I think it's too much, honestly. Something a bit darker. Yeah, dark, healthy green like this. And I can go across the whole region here. And probably this as well, though we'll change this up once I decide what goes where. There's likely going to be a desert on this bit down here. We'll make this be part of this rather than part of that. Then, ice and snow. So there's snow, there's various ice types. And there's land white too. So if we compare land white with no. Which of these do I like better? I'm out of it. Maybe the bit of texture at the top is nicer. Because this is a very glaring white. This is kind of dirtied a bit. Or split them, make the top a bit paler than the bottom. That works too. Yeah, that'll do for now. Then the oceans. Water blue, green, water 2. The water blue one, is that what we're using right now? Background. No, that's not what we're using right now. I think I like that better as a default, and then we can use this other one for other spots. Is the water blue 3 that we're using then? Yeah, water blue 3 is this lighter one, that's the darker one. And then water blue green, water green, and how's this? Okay, so we've got shallow, deep, and really deep. Let's make most of this deeper water. Looks a little rough now, but should look better later once I've had time to go over it and kind of blend things together a little. A bit in the middle here as well. This should all be deeper. Panel along the middle here should be deeper as well. And yeah, up along here and off down to the side. To be cleaned up later. Back to full size. Over along here and like that. Interesting. If you just click, if you don't drag and hold, it does it a little differently. And then super deep water, like off down over here, and off to the side over here. In fact, this could just be a drop off into the deep. Like that. But more gradual over here. Now I assume it's in the advanced setting. Right, the opacity. What does softness change if I... Oh, okay. Softness is how much it does that blending stuff at the edges. Alright. Texture, scale, color, hue, saturation, brightness, contrast, no. Opacity. I'll need to see how much I can make them blend together. There's likely tutorials on this that I can look up later to figure out how to really do it well. I have looked a little bit into a few tutorials to see how other people are using Incarnate. Oh, it's fairly useful. We've made a lot of changes, yes, we have. Never hurts to save every now and then. Few things worse than losing your work after much progress. Circle with any... I don't know, because that makes very distinct edges to things. Yeah. There's no softness setting for that. Okay, we basically just don't want this to be as smooth of a line as it is, because then it looks very artificial and unnatural. Whereas if we go over everything, even though the lines, even though it's not really blended together that much, just having it be not straight or perfectly smooth lines helps quite a lot on the aesthetic there. I am curious whether if I just tone the opacity down, maybe not down quite that much, half. Oh yeah, that works a little better for blend. But then I still end up with very straight lines. Yeah, it has to be a little rough and broken up to really work. Get rid of these harsh corners over here. Make this a little bit more uneven. And then this middle bit, which is really the worst looking part. Now Incarnate takes every click I do as a change, so it's going to pop up a lot with "it's been a while since you've saved your work," but we can ignore that for a moment. Into there a bit. Like that, like that. Now Incarnate, I do believe, does a little bit of this kind of coast stuff by default, just with the coastal brush. Like if you V select M, there we go. If you just click, did I draw ocean on the foreground over here on accident? Full opacity, please. But yes, if you just click with the mask brush, you get this kind of effect around the sides anyway. You know, where it kind of makes it look like shallow water by default. But I just want to extend that a little further with these. No, V select, M's mask, O's object, B brush. Background, and this is the one I was using. Remove the last couple of those. I need to set the opacity back to half. There we go. Make that all just a little bit rougher. And this is the kind of detailing work where if you really enjoy making maps, you're going to lose hours of your lifetime just getting the exact shade of the water on this and there bit of coastline correct, exactly how you want them. I don't want to get too heavily into that, but I do want to do it at least a little bit. I definitely am one of those people who can just get lost in the detailing. Okay, and then the deep water over here. Fetch it up to the north a little around over here. Turn the opacity down a bit because I do want this to be a fairly harsh, in fact I might turn it off entirely. I do want this to be a fairly harsh kind of cliff drop off into the deep over here. Yeah. Don't know if I quite like how it looks yet, but it can be fixed later. Okay. What else on the brushwork? So this continent is meant to be all greenery like that. This one's meant to be wacky biomes. What about this? At least one bit of this land has to be a desert. So barren lands, and there's various shades of desert. I quite like just regular kind of yellowish gold sand. Wrong layer, foreground. Yeah, so make that a desert. Make this a desert. Maybe make part of this a desert and then it goes into something else. Something like a rocky wasteland. Yeah. Maybe the tip of that as well. Sure, there we go. Desert and barren land up here. And then these two islands, do they remain green? They are meant to be part of this. I could throw something else onto there. Let's just test these out on here. See how they look. I like to make world building like this quite a bit actually, combining just kind of practical concerns and just aesthetics. A lot of my ideas for world building have come from ideas for characters, and the ideas for characters have come from seeing art, you know? I'll see a picture someone's drawn of some pretty magical effect, and then go, oh, that looks really cool. Now, how would I design a magic system that would lead to that kind of effect happening, you know? What would cause that to be how magic looks? And then I design a system and then a character who uses that system. So in this case, I've got an idea of what I want to have in the world and kind of a checklist of these are the biomes and places that must be there. But I'm also going to go, hey, this looks really cool. how do I marry that and my idea of what needs to be in the world together? I do have to say, as I'm doing this, one thing that I do wish we had is a pipette tool. I'd very much like to be able to click on a specific location and go, hey, I want this brush to be what I'm using. We've got the recently used, but if you go through a lot of different brushes and you forget exactly which one, you know, if you forget whether you used your water grey 2 or land grey 1, not in a great example because it's land and water, wasteland 1 and land 11, or land grey 1, they're different, but they're not different enough at a glance that you're going to be able to go, oh yeah, I used that one, definitely. So a pipette tool would be appreciated. Now then, is there anything else I want to put down there besides the sand? Lava, probably not. Ice, we could paint some ice sheets, actually, around up here. Ooh, that's very frosty. What fits the best? I'm thinking something paler. This maybe is a good one. Or like that, yeah. Something really dark? No, too vibrant of a colour. This, a bit more washed out? No. This one, I think. Was that one? Yeah. This is the exact scenario where I think, hey, perpetual would be great. Alright, so ice around the more northern bits of this. You know, the bits we had marked out by the white texture rather than the snow texture. And then and here's the problem exactly. Which water did I use? This one, thankfully. Make the brush smaller. Turn the opacity down. Actually no, opacity should stay up. There should be a fairly clear demarcation between what is ice and what isn't. It just needs to be a little less of an obvious curved line from the brush. Yeah, put a little bit of detail work on it. Smaller even. Yeah. No pointy bits like that. To be cleaned up later. Reset that. Reset it. Oh, I can change. I need to not lose track of what I've got open where I can just change the settings all down here and not do one here and one there. Okay, so that brings us on to this one where things are going to get a little more interesting. I want a few different things from up here. I remember, was it in the regional map? Yeah, there's just darkness. There is going to be an area of this map that's going to be just darkness, definitely. Let's put that into our recently used. There's going to be... oh, the parchment. Okay, the parchment brushes are just kind of political. Oh, okay, so you can draw country borders onto there. Let me have a look at my checklist. I've got the deserts. Yep, I've got the rocky area. Got the brush for one region that's going to be all dark. Right, and then I want somewhere with a lot of water going on. Okay. So one of those with the water, that's going to be very green, vibrant terrain. Maybe over here, wrong layer. No, that looks actually quite cool. I might mess around with the water at some point. Yeah, so this section can be like that. And then maybe we throw a little bit of swampland in there to the south. Like that. And then the dark across the north. Maybe we don't make that pure black. I think that's a little too much. Yeah, we want maybe... Okay, what do I put as an underlayer? Yeah, we'll use that same wasteland brush we used before. And probably it doesn't cover quite that big of an area, so grass, red, no. What am I using here? Grass 2? Nope. Grass 1? Yes, grass 1. Alright, push that back a little bit. I have kind of lined these two up over here, and I don't like that. I want it to be less of a curve like that, so come in there like this. Yeah, that's a little better. Make the brush really small, not quite that small. Really small, and make sure that this is pushed up a bit more here. Yep, good. And then the darkness at 0.5 opacity. Yeah, we shroud this whole thing in shadows. Oh, I don't want to double layer myself, so I have to pick a small enough brush to do the edges and then do the whole thing in one go. There we go. We want it to be very obviously much darker up here, but we don't want it to be pure black. There needs to be a little bit of texture overlaid. Just like that. Put the opacity back to maximum. Let me just take a drink real quick. Okay, so we've got that. Now then, am I missing anything else? Let me go with my checklist. Yeah, there's one more kind of biome type, and looking at it, I'm not sure where to fit it in on here, really. I think I might repurpose this south bit of the peninsula to be that specific region. It's not going to be this shade at the end, but I'm just putting it there like that to mark off so I know what I'm doing down here. And then the rest of it. Some of this excuse me. Some of this does have to be just like actually normal and habitable land. So, grass mix. I mean, that's just a different shade of what's going on. Swamp texture. Oh, this kind of vibrant radioactive green. No, that's too much. All that brush up against here. Bit too big still in there. I think the downside is that on a smaller brush, because on a larger one, it's kind of faint on the edge, whereas with the smaller one, obviously the area available for that faintness is smaller, so you end up with a much harsher edge to the brush when you're trying to do some detailing, which represents a certain amount of difficulty. Alright, there we go. Do think that's turned out well. Let me just cover some of the edges where it hasn't quite reached. Good. And save since it's suggesting it. So we have a basic outline of how the terrain is supposed to look. We've got one main continent that's going to be all very temperate grasslands, forests, plains, that kind of stuff, all across all of this. We've got the frozen big island to the north. We've got one continent with all kinds of screwed up terrain, so this region where it's just dark permanently. This, which is kind of uninhabitable, but weird compared to the other stuff. You know, it's got to be magical plants and all that. Then this is going to be all manner of wetlands, and it's going to be magic influenced water features and terrain. Swampy down here, and here is going to be a whole bunch of mountains breaking up smaller sub-regions of different climates. I do have to blow my nose real quick. The joys of this happening every time it gets ever so mildly colder here. Then on this we have sorta desert-ish terrain up here, full-on desert down here, and barren rocky wasteland here. Now, no part of any of this is geographically realistic. You know, I'm not taking plate tectonics into account. I'm not taking prevailing winds or what climate would naturally go where into account. This map, like, the terrain is purely meant to serve the world building and what I want to put into the world and where I want to put it. Which brings us then to the Objects tab. Now at default size, we're putting down mountains at this kind of scale. That is too big. Show me half of that. Half of that will do, I think. Now, there is... I don't know whether it's just I need to change it on these mountains or if it's a different mountain type. Green, red, brown, all different colors. Oh, and casts and maces. Very nice. Let's say I take Dark Mountains large. Okay. Okay, for this bit down here, I probably want a selection of different mountains, to be honest. But I'll take green as the baseline. Now, if I remember rightly, changing blend mode to luminosity, yeah, means the mountains take on the colors of whatever brushes under them. Now, I don't know if luminosity is the only one. Okay, that's a little too much. Saturation. Exclusion. Interesting. Soft light. Multiply, darken. Okay. Luminosity looks to be the one that I want. And that places all manner of mountain down here. Let's pop a bunch around. It's like all of, I feel like they get placed a little too close together if I hold and drag, so I'm going to lick a whole load instead. But like this is still pretty busy mountain-wise. But not quite as busy as it could have been. This one here's got a little into the water. Let me just grab that. Okay. So, super mountainous across the entirety of that. Then, where else do I want mountains? Let's turn luminosity back off. I suppose I should compare what it looks like if I just put those mountains there instead. And it might in fact look a whole lot better. I can grab and move this entire thing. And then go in on again with this and compare. Yeah, a bit too dense. Advanced settings, density, 80%. How much difference does that actually make? Does density even affect it if I'm not doing in area mode? No, it doesn't. Okay, place multiple. Or here we go. Area, and now density. Make the area smaller than that, actually. Good, 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 good. Couple that are out of place. I'll just drag over to where I want them. You know, just the ones that overlap onto the water. I don't want them doing that. And it's easier, I think, to move the mountains than it would be to come in and redraw the coastline. Alright, like that. And then we can select all this and delete it. And saved. Alright. Now then, more mountains. Across the mainland and across the north. We've got some snow mountains. Yeah, we've got grey, snow, snow-capped. They're all quite good looking. I think these, and we're just going to draw like a line of them across this. Just because it feels like a very natural kind of border. So we can mark it out with some mountains. Yeah, that feels natural. The deserts... I don't think the deserts need a whole bunch of mountains. We could put a few casts and stuff around. I think these green mountains are actually the ones that I saw in the tutorial video. No, maybe not. I feel like when I saw it in the video, the luminosity setting didn't have that big of an impact on their appearance. A few mesas or casts could be a good idea for this. Maybe just on one of the islands, like on this one? Yeah. This particular stretch of this island can be mesas, and then I can transition fairly smoothly into casts, which do have to have the luminosity thing turned on. That's way too green for this kind of rock otherwise. And those will be all over here. That was a little too many in one spot. Now, I've seen it recommended that you want to, if you change the scale for the stamps on one feature, keep it consistent for all of them. I personally feel these look a little too small like that, but I'm going to run with the advice for now, see how I feel about it, and if I end up still going, nah, don't like that at the end, I can come back and change it then. Let's just check around if there's any other mountain style stuff. There are volcanoes, of course. Rain clip mask. Not entirely sure what that means. Oh, these are specifically ones set up to do the thing I was looking at doing before. Whoops. Oh well, this is why I look through the menus. Okay, give me... Let's place some of these down so that they show up in my recently used. And then select this whole thing, move it over here. Select this whole thing, move it over here. And then, so we have Flipmask mesas. Those ones work just fine for that area. Now, these are a bit bigger. We'll put a few of these around to the south and then transition that over into the casts for the north. Gives a bit of an implication that there was desert further north before as well. I'm also going to scatter a few of these along. That's a little... See, now that's a little too light to really go in there. Even just what lines there are for the detailing. Maybe some mountains here coming down this whole... Coming down from in here and running along this entire thing. And then... yeah, then area like 20, density like 80%, and we scatter them across here. I like it, I like it. Couple ones we want to move around, just a few. Yeah, just a few. In which case we can delete all of that. There we go. Okay. So, mesas and casts over here, mountains in abundance here and in a range going along there. The main continent needs at least a few mountains. But probably not in clusters like that. And do I want those mountains to be taking on a color of their surroundings, or do I want them to be their own kind of deal? Green mountains, beige mountains, medium, large. I don't want grey mountains large. Beige mountains, dark brown, dark mountains large. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Okay, reset those. Density can go above 100%. How does that work? This is 100% density, and this is 150% density. Maybe just a few individual ones dotted around the place. So, how am I feeling about this? This open area. This should all remain perfectly safe. If there's going to be mountains, I think they should be over on this end. And I think there can be one down here. And I think there can be a few more along this coast. But just a couple, and then like one there. Just a few mountains over on the side, spice things up. Maybe throw in some hills, right? We've got hills as well. Mountains. Hills, there we go. Green hills, but they're not particularly green. These are more green. Way too many, way too many if I just click and drag. No, I think splitting them up like that I wanted to avoid specifically the look of a mountain chain, and putting those hills in between is just doing that same thing. I could put some more hills around the place, but I want to avoid going too super deep on the detail. This is meant to be a world map. It's meant to show significant terrain features. So a whole mountain range running down here, significant. This entire area is made of mountains, significant. Likewise, these are completely covered in casts and mesas. These are major big mountains that really stand out and that people orientate themselves around, so they go on the map. Every last little hill that covers this entire continent does not need to be represented, so we'll steer away from that. Oh, clouds, pretty. Put some clouds around this part. These are very tall mountains, and I'll say this one in particular is a tall mountain, which we can show by putting some clouds around it, bring them up a layer. Yeah, that gives the kind of effect I'm looking for. Maybe one around this one as well. Yeah. But move down a little. Nice. Okay. I have other ideas of what stuff I want to have where, but I do feel I should... Well, tree, cool. I do feel I should have a look through here. Get an idea for all the stuff that there is. The trees obviously we'll use, we want to put some forests down at some point. Some cliffs and stuff for terrain could be a good idea. I don't know about volcanoes, but I also feel like if I want to do funky stuff, at least a volcano or two somewhere. Maybe one finishing off this chain here. It looks a little out of place. Shadow, blend mode, luminosity. Ah, but that takes all the orange out of it then. Okay. It will just have to be bright orange. I can maybe... not that. Ah, I can turn the brightness down a bit. There we go, that looks less out of place. Maybe I actually went a little too far even on that. 75? 80? 80 looks good. Simple trees, I don't think they really look that much better to these. I might put some cherry trees down in certain places. Points of interest, ruins, portals, whirlpools, castles, dark towers, volcano. Gonna take a drink. My face tracking really doesn't like it when it loses sight of me because I put a bigger cup up. I do have to reset it every now and then. There we go, so I don't drift across the whole screen. Isometric points of interests, icons, more icons, buildings, heraldries, labels. Okay, components that you can build a frame out of. And little banners to put behind your name so they stand out more. Elven icons and buildings, dwarven, different scales, dragon illustrations, serpent illustrations, ships. Compass roses, do love a nice compass rose. That's quite pretty. So is that. I have to wonder about the decisions made here on how big each of these is. They're all in the same scale. But we don't really need a compass rose. Markers. Cave entrances. Regular brown mountains and hills. Leafy beige trees. Leafy snowy trees. And animal illustrations. Okay. That's what we've got to work with. Now, let's take a moment to think about this. The next detail I probably need to put down somewhere on the map is going to be forests, I think. A lot of this land is going to be pretty heavily forested. I could put some snowy tree lines across the southern edge of this. The swamps will have lots of swampy trees. This I'll probably want to handle the water first before I start putting trees down, so I can see where the trees go. So I could sprinkle some cacti around here just for the aesthetic. No trees in this, no trees in this. Or there are trees in this, but not to the scale of a forest, so they do not need to be represented on the map. But that comment here about water does make me think maybe I should tend to that first. So we've got two options for that. We can use the line tool, pick a kind of blue color, and then draw rivers on. I think if you also turn off the shadow, Probably needs to be a little darker so it doesn't stand out so heavily on the map. But yeah, you can draw rivers like that with lines. Also a stamp version. I'm not sure how that's working entirely. I probably should try to figure it out real quick. Offset, caps, opacity, layer. No idea what's happening there. Is it not got a color it's picking up? Don't know. Okay, but in color mode, we can draw in rivers like this. The alternative is we go to the mask tool, we bring it way down in size, but that's still pretty big. Okay, so it has a limit, it has a minimum limit on how much it can be zoomed out. That's probably not useful for this then. I think if I wanted to make use of that, I would have to make the resolution of the map significantly higher, which I'm very curious about, so I am going to save the map very quickly and try that out. This one can be deleted. That was just when change the size of the map before. So if I go on here, I go on Fantasy World. Annotation is an experiment for a feature, sure. High resolution editing requires a lot of RAM and video memory, but it's still the same amount of tiles. So let's just go back to medium and go to custom and give me like triple 120 by 90 create map. Draw some land. Switch to subtract mode. Go down to minimum. No, that more or less does the same thing. This might have been changed because I'd looked at videos of people doing this exact thing, and they were able to get a lot more detail, which I don't seem to be having on here. It might just be that there's some setting for that, which I haven't figured out. Jump to maps, leave, go back to this one. In which case we'll be drawing our rivers on with the path tool rather than creating them using the mask tool. So, lines recently used, and we need to make the color darker or duller. How's this? Way too, like, it looks too obviously drawn on, you know? It doesn't blend into the surroundings at all. Shift the opacity perhaps, or blend mode, but blend mode will make it take on the colors of what it's around, and we don't want that either. Might be that one of these does what I want, but I don't use enough art programs to know what all of the different blends do. I see them often enough, you know, the same options are available in Vroid Studio where I made my avatar. That's nicer. Put on some blur. Road guides, no. Okay. What if I turn radius up? That makes it messier, and turn it down less so. Okay. Experiment a little to find the right amount, but I think they've got a good idea on with 10. I still think the color needs to be slightly different. Maybe lighter again now that I'm blending it into the surroundings. Yeah. I'm gonna scribble over everything and see how it meshes with the different colors. Stands out a fair deal in most of the locations, but it's good enough for now. Now, rivers. I've mostly discarded ideas of realistic topography and geography for the majority of this. You know, I don't care about what climate is supposed to go where and how the tectonic plates shifted, the prevailing winds and stuff like that. With rivers, I'm going to be mostly the same. I'm not too interested about creating realistic watersheds and river basins and stuff like that. I am, however, going to take some of those aspects into account. So, for example, you know, no rivers cross continents that connect to two different oceans. We've got that kind of stuff with these connections. Rivers will flow, generally speaking, from mountains and high places, and they'll go out to the ocean or to a lake. I'm not going to have rivers just like crossing each other randomly, or rivers splitting off at random, that kind of thing. Because while realism doesn't matter a whole lot to me, plausibility and internal consistency does. So if I create a place where rivers split at random, sure, but I want to have an explanation for that. Like, for example, this region up here, which is cast into permanent darkness, that's not realistic, but it is a deliberate part of the world building. Whereas if I have a river that just happens to split, well, now I need a reason why at that particular location the laws of physics don't work and water goes in two directions at once. For anyone curious why river splitting is considered so unrealistic and why the world building community harps on about it, essentially, if you've got a pool of water and that pool fills because there's a river flowing into it, and then it overspills and a river continues in a direction, it will start spilling over at the first location that's low enough for water to pass. So if water keeps flowing in at a higher rate than is flowing out, it should just flow more through that one opening. It should not flow through that opening and then also flow through another one, unless someone has built like a dam or something specifically to do that. Likewise, if you have a river hitting a point where there's just even ground splitting in different directions, it should still favor one of those. Maybe not instantly, you know, if you have a flood, then water goes everywhere. You know, if you've ever seen a flood in a city, it's going through all of the streets, flooding everything. But left to its own devices and left to enough time, it will pick one path that's the easiest path to flow down. You know, stuff will get eroded away, stuff will get deposited, and one location will become the dominant flow. I can hear my voice start to sound funny because my nose is blocked, so let me just take a moment to blow my nose. Okay, so rivers. I'm going to have one come out of this hill and wind its way across the darkness, and it will turn and it will go here and it will come out into the ocean there. Then this will all be a whole mess of water anyway, so I don't really need to draw that on. This is all swamp and wetland. But perhaps still some major waterways. I mean, this place will... yeah, some water coming down from there. And something that comes from here, and maybe we have a more major lake. Because there's 2 rivers that flow here. And from there it flows outwards like that. And then across here, there's a major river that goes from here and disappears into some caves over there. Yeah. Now, I've not put enough mountains around to have all my rivers come from mountains. So there will be a river that just kind of comes out of nowhere here and goes off to the ocean. And there will be a river that starts somewhere here and pools into a lake. And maybe just have a lake here that's not fed from anywhere in particular. Then over here, another river that comes from in the dark and flows out and meanders a bit and then goes to the coast. Over here, something like this, and it curls around between the mountains and goes out to the coast. Here, no, I don't like that one actually. Here and goes to a lake. And here, where it hits another river. And from here flows to there, and from this lake flows also into there. Yeah. I think that's a good amount of waterways. And these are like the major rivers. In fact, actually, maybe let's have this one continue. And this will be a super long river that snakes across the whole place, all the way up to there. Yeah, and these are just the absolute most major waterways. There are other rivers and lakes and stuff around the place, but none of them big enough or important enough to get a spot on this map. With that said, I think it's time to go on to trees. Now, do I want the floofy trees? Do I want the simple trees or full trees? I think full trees. And we'll drag... Nope, that's way... I've saved, that's not what I wanted to do. Control Z. That's way too dense. I want the trees to go in an area and to be about 80% dense, maybe smaller area. Size 10. Way too much. 70% dense. Too much. Less than half. 40% dense. Perfect. But not that perfect. Still need to do a little bit of adjusting, a little bit of editing. And maybe I don't want them to go quite that far to the north. I mostly want this and then make the tree sparser as it gets further north. Move that cluster around a bit, split them up. Take a couple out of there. Like that, like that. And then there are the most dense on the southernmost tip. Steal one of these out and put it down here. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so we've got a little bit of snowy forest up over there. And then we want more pine forest along the north of this. Turn density down to 20. And more sparse coming through here. Like that. And what does hitting S when I have this selected do? Is this changing the the way they're arrayed? Size. Ah. Wait, that's changing the stamp scale? These are at size 100. My mountains were at size 50. There we go. Change that back. Size 50 trees are this size though, so what happened in between here? How did we ended up with size 100 trees? Yeah, these are actually way too big compared to the mountains, aren't they? They need to be like this kind of size. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. But now that I've spotted it, I can't really have that. And that destroys the river as well. Okay, this is going to take a moment longer to fix. Get rid of those. And then here, I select one tree. Can I select all stamps like this? Okay, no. Select all stamps from this set. There we go. Get rid of the trees. Now, we go in again. Trees. And they're back to stamp scale 100. What am I clicking to make that happen? Is it the S key? Is it when I hit the S key after changing the size? No? I'm really not sure what's going on there. Anyway, now we've got appropriately sized trees. Put the density back up for the... that's too high. For the south. Yeah, I like that a lot more. V for the select tool. Still need to rearrange a few of these that are either too close to the coast or too close to each other. Grab a few out of the mess down here. They look way less bad all crammed together now that they're this size than they did before. Alright, similar thing. Pine trees. Density 40. Across the northern stretch. And across all of this. And then density 20. Where the forest spins out over here. And then I keep hitting S for like select, which is not correct at all. You go up a layer to... Or not? What if I turn the blur off on this? It's very visible underneath there. Not size. Layer. I'm not sure at all. Blur free? Does that look better? Select all, like all lines of this style and turn their blue down to 3. That does mess up my lakes because they are now more squiggles than before, because before the blur made them blend together really heavily, so they looked like just one thing. That's fine, we can fix that. Line tool, go in here again. Stroke size. Just want to make these roughly circular, ovalish shapes. Oh, that looks terrible. Do we have an eraser? Is that a thing? We can delete the entire line section, but that's not what I'm going for. I also need to adjust some of these because now that they're unblurred, they don't quite start and end where they were intended to. Ah, the messy, messy world of using any kind of art program. Always some unforeseen complication. Okay. Back to L and just round them out a little. We'll make them bigger, unfortunately. I will have to deal with that. Okay, I think those still look okay overall. I do, as I said, wish that there was an eraser tool. Redraw, pen. What's different about pen? Okay. Well, draws nice enough curved lines, I guess. And then there's nodes and portals. But none of this is a rub things out tool. Unfortunate. Oh, interesting. And then there's an add or subtract key. Oh wait, I've been using, well, this is embarrassing. I've been using the line tool, not the path tool. Those are in fact different things. Oh. Okay. So what if I change, what if I go to this, go to color, copy the color, go to path tool, paste the color in. Let's see, I draw a line in this. Looks more or less the same. I should draw a blob with that. It's more or less the same. But the shadow that we turned off for the other one. Layer, opacity, width. Redraw segments. Advanced options is just the cap. So say I turn the shadow off. Yeah, if I turn the shadow off, then the line just looks identical to the path tool, so there's no worries on that front. Mistake still made, but turn out to be inconsequential. Going back to the objects in that case, trees. So we've put some pines across the north. Next, jungle trees, swamp trees, swamp trees. Give me some of those and put them across the southern tip of this. And yeah, just the southern tip of that actually. And then give me jungle trees at a higher density for this island and for this whole stretch of coast, and then at a lower density for the whole rest of this. Good. And finally, regular trees, which I want low density across pretty much the entire rest of this continent, really? Maybe not the entire, but start with all of it and then cut back where I don't want them. Yeah, trees across the whole thing, and then select, and where do I want less trees? Around here, we can delete, oh crap. Around here, we can show me just the selected objects. Don't show me everything, because I want to unselect the lines specifically. Edit node lock selection. No, I want to control click U and control click U, and then I can delete just what I'm after. And similarly here, I want to unselect the line and delete just the trees. It's going to be a little tedious to do in every location. In which case, let's undo that and let's apply the trees a little more thoughtfully. So, keep the areas right around parts of the rivers free. We can go all the way across the top here. We can go over this and this. And go all around here. Leave that. Leave this. Cover where the rivers start here and down this bit. And then actually give me some dense forest. Some dense forest along here. And over in this bit. Bit more low density just along the edges here, so it's not so harsh of a break. Alright, yeah, like that. Oh, excuse me, sorry. And finally this bit. Bushes and shrubberies, autumn stuff. We do have other tree type. How they look on the map next to the other ones. Odd. Regular trees, density 30. Across all of this. This entire place to be forested. Okay, and then clean up the coastlines just a bit. Not gonna zoom in enough to pick out like every little bit of tree that pokes over the edge, just gonna roughly get the places where it looks obvious. Okay. I think aesthetic wise I've definitely got quite a ways to go. I'm gonna need to watch a few tutorials and really figure out how to make an incarnate map look good. Because there's still definitely bits I need to tidy up in terms of the water levels and stuff like that, and maybe some of this up here. I think getting better at the placement of trees and mountains will come with time. But yeah, this is decent. So in terms of what goes onto this map in the long run, so this is a world scale map. These are entire continents. And I have a bunch of things, of ideas in mind for specific civilizations and stuff, but not the full kind of picture of the political situation of the whole world. You know, there's going to be a kingdom somewhere on this, which is where the quest gets issued for those characters that spawned the seed for this entire world idea. So that's gonna go somewhere like probably here by these rivers. Ugh. Oh, sorry. I really ought to get more sleep. Yawning all day. Yeah, so that's one location that I know I need for sure. I need a kingdom for those people. Somewhere probably like here, somewhere in this bit, there's going to be the Spring Nations, which is going to be an area consumed by constant revolutions. You know, like new nations rise and fall there every season, so each spring the entire place looks different. This in the dark, there's not going to be nations here, I think, but lots of little orders and places where people gather, especially around the volcano. This here, the mountains, I might go and scale these mountains up compared to the ones in the rest of the world, like just a little bit. Because the idea for this region is that it's an absolutely colossal mountain range with really, really huge mountains, and on top or in between the various mountains in the valleys, there are all manner of different biomes that shelter a bunch of different nations. At one point, this entire peninsula would have been a single great empire, which is now all divided. And this is also going to be, this map, there's going to be an underground section to this map. And this area is going to be the region with the most connections to the underground and the people who live there. This region here will be the second most connected to the underground. And the deal for this place is that there's going to be swampland and waterways absolutely everywhere, and all sorts of strange phenomena with the water, like airborne rivers and stuff like that. Water flowing all over the place, including underground into tunnels, which is what connects it to the underground. Then here, the deserts, this will be pretty standard. There's going to be some countries here, they gather around oases and stuff like that. Kind of very standard what you expect to find in a fantasy world desert. Not doing anything funky here. Some mesas just because they look good. And then this region because I really like the aesthetic and like exploring the world building for countries in a spot that isn't the frozen north, isn't the scorching south, but still isn't green and easily inhabitable. Very little greenery around here, and it's just an interesting place to explore world building wise. And then on the rest of this, there's going to be a bunch more, you know, kingdoms, republics, all manner of stuff. Fairly standard fare. This mountain is going to have some kind of significance. This mesa, there'll be, I don't know, pirates or something. All over the shop, there's going to be flying islands. Specifically a lot here. I put that idea into the test map I made yesterday, and I still like it a lot, so there's going to be a bunch of that over here. I'll probably have to copy all of this down and then off stream when I can really focus on it and not have to split my attention talking. I will come up with what the political map looks like for this world. You know, I'll decide on an actual scale, specifically, you know, this amount of distance on a map is this many kilometers, and then figure out how big do I want my nations to be, how many of them do I want there to be, what land in this do they occupy. I might have to go back in and rework the rivers. I did say that these are only the most major rivers and such, but even then, I still kind of feel like since they're represented on the map, they'll dictate a lot of what I choose to put where. So I have to think about that a bit more. I'll probably spend a good long while looking at example maps and stuff. I've only just started using Incarnate, so I'm still very new to getting the scales and stuff right on a map like this. And I've got much to learn in that regard. Don't know what I'm going to do on the north, whether I'm going to put any nations here or not. Yeah, it could be that this is only the beta edition of the map, and that later on, once I get a little better at using it, I'll rework the entire thing to be a lot more in line with what kind of scale I'm working on and what I needed to display. This is, I think, shape-wise, I'm happy with it mostly. I think this is a very workable shape for the whole world map. I can imagine zooming in on specific parts of this to make region maps out of them. It's just a question of how big should those regions be. Like, this entire section with the mountains and stuff, if I'm trying to think about the real world and how much I want to jam into this area, how many countries I want there to be, but I want all of this to have been held by a sizable empire at one point, then I'm thinking this region probably needs to be, yeah, about as big as Europe. And make it that size, if I think about how many nations there are in Europe at the moment, and how big they are, and then I want one empire, so, you know, the easiest analog for Roman Empire to rule over this, then yeah, this probably needs to be roughly the size of Europe. In which case, there probably should be a couple rivers on here, and there aren't, but there are rivers elsewhere, so, yeah, the scale doesn't quite work. It needs refinement a whole lot, to be honest. But that's an issue on the map scale. I think in terms of a world building, the scale does work. If this is about the size of Europe, then looking around at the rest of it, yeah, this is all about as big as I want it to be. I can fit all of the nations I need into this land in this area. And it's a good start. A good start for what will likely be a very extensive project. I mean, fleshing all of this out, depending on how deep I choose to go, could be the work of years, really. And I look forward to it. I think that will be a good ongoing project to have on stream. Maybe at some point bring in suggestions if anyone shows up who has interest in proposing a few things for the world. I've not seen many projects like that, to be honest. There are people who do world building on stream, usually for their D&D games, but it's very much they're doing the world building. They might take suggestions, but ultimately their decision still. I've not really seen a community world building project before. I don't know if that's what this will be, because I've got a lot of my own ideas, but it's something that this could be, or at least regions of it. I'll think about it. Probably no Incarnate streams next week. I'll likely be back to playing Europa Universalis 4, enjoying some more of that. It's still only July, so we're still months away from the Factorio DLC release, but I'm very much looking forward to that. I'll probably find a few other games to play in the interim. Might come back to Minecraft at some point. I'm debating that at the moment. If I do, there's a good chance it's going to be coming back to a mod pack instead of vanilla, because as much as I love Minecraft and I want to explore what new stuff vanilla has to offer, it's just so difficult transitioning over to a building and aesthetics focus when for so long I've been machine focused. So I think maybe just a light mod pack. Not, you know, the whole shebang to get completely lost in mods, but just a few, so I've got something to do. I need my kind of catch for my mind to latch onto. I had the same thing in Factoria where I struggled to launch the rocket in vanilla, but then I installed the Crastorio space exploration combo, and all the extra stuff to do made it so much easier to reach the rocket and then go beyond that. We'll see, we'll see. Questions for later, questions for next week. For now, thank you very much for joining me on this stream. I'm gonna have a quick look on Twitch if there's anyone else maybe doing stuff on Incarnate. I saw there was someone doing some the other day, but no, doesn't look like it. No one online for me to raid, so I shall simply end the stream there. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.